Hello everyone, this is Scott from Exposition.com. Today I want to be showing you how to properly configure W3total cache for most users on shared hosting. This is going to be the optimal settings for most users who have a simple blog or a website and are using W3total cache. Keep in mind that we do not use Cloudflare, and that will go into greater explanation later. But I will also show you later how to configure Cloudflare in another video. We're going to start off by going to our general settings. In this one, I have used no Cloudflare other than for website security. This setup allows me to get the benefits of W3total cache without the annoyance and hassle of Cloudflare. First off, you want to go to your page caching. Page caching, enable, and then go to your page cache method and do enhanced. Ignore the other ones unless you have multiple servers, a dedicated, or a VPS. The next thing that you want to do is you want to come into your Minify options. You want to enable, turn on auto unless your website has any issues. In most cases, auto minify will work. Otherwise, you may use the manual configuration, which will require you to select each and every file you want to be minified, and the others will be ignored. For HTML minifier, you may use the default or HTML tidy. If you use HTML tidy, you may have website errors and there may be issues. If you can use HTML tidy and there are no errors, then you're good to go. For JS minification, use JS min, and for CSS minifier, I prefer default, CSS tidy, or UI compressor are all just fine. I have found no issues using either one of these services, and I just chose CSS tidy for no real reason because I never saw much of a decrease in performance either way. Turn on database caching and turn on for disk. Again, ignore all dedicated virtual server or multiple servers formula caching. For object cache, turn on disk. For browser cache, enable the HTTP compression, which is gzip. If you have a CDN, you can configure it here, but please keep in mind we are not going to go through the steps of configuring a CDN for this video. All of the settings are useless for you right now. If you want, you may turn on Enable Edge mode. Edge will technically increase the performance of your website. However, at the same time, you may have website issues while doing so. If you can use the Edge mode and your website still looks good, then by all means use it. Your website will have an increase in performance. And that is all in the basic settings. Over here we can go into more technical detail with each form of caching and our minification. For caching, make sure you cache your front page. Make sure that your feed, categories, tags, and comments are also cached. Make sure you cache your HTTP request. This will improve the performance of HTTPS, which has also notably been slower. Make sure that cache URLs with query strings is unchecked. This is a common one where people would normally get a check. I do not, because it always ends up coming up with an issue. You may turn this option off, but it is not necessary. This will make it to where your users will always have the most updated page if they're logged in. This is best if you're a developer, because you will not have to wait for your website to ever have a cache gone. And now we're going to go to cache preload. Automatically prime the page and update interval of 900 seconds and pages per interval of 10. Make sure you include your sitemap. If you have WordPress SEO, make sure that you have the extension installed for W3total cache. Your purge policy is not going to affect your performance, only for when you purge the cache. This is not needed if you're on shared hosting. You are not even able to enable it. Enable compatibility mode will decrease your performance, but it'll be more compatible across hosting and websites. If you're able to use the compatibility mode and you see no difference in your website or hosting or any other form of issues, then by all means turn it off. Your user agents, rejected cookies, and nonsense will be controlled by the W3total Cache plugin. If you are using a mobile redirect plugin that's such as Jetpack's mobile theme, most of them will already have pre-configuration settings for your user agents and referred groups. Therefore, there's no reason to worry about it. Rewrite URL structure does not need to be checked. Make sure that this is always unchecked. This does not need to be shown, but if you do find that you are in your development stage and it finds errors, by all means make sure you have them send you errors. HTML and XML minify settings. Enable HTML minify, inline CSS minification, and inline JS minification, and don't minify feeds. Line break removal can be used. It will not increase your performance by any noticeable amount. But in the chance that it does, you will notice a very slight performance increase. I've never noticed any. However, you may also end up breaking your website's theme. JS minify should be enabled and should have the minify settings. Mine on my website already does, ignoring this change. Sadly, I don't know why that is doing that, but we will go over it. CSS minifying settings. Enable, combine only. Combining your CSS files if you can combine and compress them, by all means remove the combine only. For most websites, you may have issues by doing so. Therefore, only combine them. Remove unnecessary backslashes, compress colors, compress font weight, and the rest of these are not really needed. You can add a timestamp if you want, but there's no real need. There's no real need for it. At import handling, at import is technically not recommended because Internet Explorer does not know how to at import properly because it is dumb. Compression, you can keep it at the standard size. If you can go to the highest, which will be basically, you can't read this junk, it's in another language, but the size of it will also be the smallest. Keep in mind that the higher you go, the greater the chance of you breaking something. These settings are not really needed for you. Now let's go to our database caching. I don't know what I checked, but we're just going to go past it anyways. Don't cache queries for logged in users. Make sure that your maximum lifetime of cache objects is 18 seconds, is 180 seconds, and your garbage collection interval is 360 seconds. 3,600 seconds. Wow. And these will automatically be configured. Default lifetime of cached objects should be 180 seconds, and the garbage collection interval should be 3,600 seconds. Browser cache. Make sure you set your last modified header, set your expires header, set cache control header, set your e tags. You don't necessarily need to enable the W3total cache header, but you may. In this case, I have. And enable gzip compression. CSS and JS. Set last modified header, and set an expires header. Set the expires header lifetime to this number here, which I'm not even going to bother reading out. Set the cache control header, and the cache control policy is going to be here. Set your e tags, set the W3total cache header, and enable gzip compression. The settings are very similar again for HTML and XML. Set the expires header, your last modified header, put an hour of expires header lifetime, set cache control header, enable gzip compression, W3total cache header, and the entity e tag. The same goes for the media, and make sure you include the long period of seconds. Your user agent groups will not really affect the SEO of your website or the optimization for your website. However, if you are using a mobile phone, such as Blackberries or any one of the ones that I have listed here, it is not recommended for you to have this disabled. If you have these set, what will happen is that anyone that goes to your website and gives you this user agent, it will be redirected to this template. This is great for your website if you lack a responsive design and are using something like Jetpack, which will automatically give you a mobile version of your website. Referrer groups are really not necessary to be configured, but in this case, search engines, they will be set to a specific theme. Again, this really has no real use for your optimization. However, if you're using a website that may just have content that on the homepage sucks and it needs less HTML and more words, then you could probably use this. Keep in mind that if you break this, you could break your websites. Yeah, you could break your ability for the websites to crawl. Don't mess with it. And the rest of this is not necessary to be configured. This is junk. This is junk for most cases. Thank you very much for watching the base configuration settings. Keep in mind this may not even be the best settings for your website. It depends on your website's code, your structure, what you do, and what is best can be determined by you. The best thing to do is to test. I have found that if I try to put all my files in the footer, I will break things. If I try to load my CSS with asynchronous, I have found to break things. Do not break things. The best thing to do is just let the plugin do the base settings. Anything more is up to you, and if you still are risky or questioning on what you should do, you can pay W3total cash people, nerds with that's I'm one to talk. They will come in and they will configure it to the best of your site. Keep in mind that it is not a cheap service by any means. Especially if you're using a dedicated server or multi-server. Oh lord. So, less than 15-minute email support response. This is lame. Professional plugin configuration is lame. Ideally, if you're creating a serious website that you if you're creating a serious news network or a very powerful website, theme performance optimization and plugin configuration will be your best deal. If you're using a server and you do not know what you're doing, please do not assume you know what you're doing. Let them go in and try and configure. If you've thrown the money into a server, you can throw in for proper configuration. You can find many tutorials. They will set it up properly. I'm not trying to say, by all means, please drop $200 for this service and you're good to go. The fact of the matter is, though, you are not going to succeed in optimizing it if you have no clue what you're doing. My settings may not even be the best, but they've worked for me and they work for most users, and that is the goal. If you are doing something, a high-class project with a lot of money thrown into it, do not try to do something that you are unaware of how to do. Thank you very much for watching. Please stay tuned for the next video. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, put them in the video below. And let me know what you all think of these videos. I know they're not just traditional reviews or software, but I kind of like showing WordPress users how to, do what we do best. And that's dealing with our millions of plugins. Thank you very much for watching, and goodbye.